Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are all connected with us very well, and you can hear us and you can see us, and you are ready for the information session of today. Here at the Prince Claus Fund, we've had quite a number of changes, so I thought today would be a great opportunity for me to just say hi to potential seed awardees and also potential partners of the future. My name is Marcus Desando, and I am the new, well, I'm not so new anymore. I've now been with the fund for just over 2 months. And I would like to welcome all of you to this session. But before then, I also have the pleasure of introducing you to our new head of programs, whom you would have probably seen last year if you actually attended the Seed Awards information session, because she was at the time the program coordinator, but now she has been promoted to head of programs. So I would like to then hand over to Tessa Giller, and I hope that you all have a wonderful hour going forward. Tessa.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Marcus. Pleasure to have you here. Yeah, so just to start off, a few sort of household announcements. So first of all, the session will be recorded and available on Facebook for anybody who wants to watch it back. And later we'll also make it accessible on our YouTube, where it will have closed captions. So anybody who either struggles to understand us, you can watch it later with subtitles. At the end of the session, we'll be answering questions in the Q&A. So please feel free to ask any of these in the Zoom chat as we move through the presentation, and we'll make sure to get back to them later. Do make sure you stick around for the Q&A, because this is really often the most useful part, as there we really sort of answer any questions that you might have. So before I hand over to Ana Ramos-Barreto, my colleague here, I'm just going to run you through a short introduction of who we are as an organization. So the Prince Claus Fund has been around for 25 years now, and we're an arts and culture fund based in the Netherlands, working in majority world countries. And we work from the conviction that culture is a basic need, and that participation in arts and culture should be available and accessible to everyone. So when I say we work in majority world countries, this means we work in most countries across Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, Latin America, and some parts of Eastern Europe and the Middle East as well. So at the fund, we really believe that the artists have a very crucial role to play in societies, and that they should get the space and freedom, be it financial, political, or other, to really do their work on their own terms, and to work with their communities to really sort of show how the arts can contribute to more open and equal societies. So our role we really see as one that's working towards cultural freedom. And how we do this is that we offer support for artists and cultural practitioners through a sequence of awards. So we work with individual artists and creatives, as it says here, and we work across disciplines. So we don't have limitations in terms of what we understand under the banner of arts and culture. We'll support anything from photography, visual arts, to theatre, performance arts, philosophy, poetry, literature, and very many interdisciplinary practices as well. What we do is that we really look at social engagement. So we look at critical artistic practices and socially engaged artistic practices, and we support the inspirational individuals who, with their creative work, are really drivers of social change. So we support artists at 3 moments at crucial stages in their creative development. These are the Seed Awards, which we're here to discuss today, and Anna will take you through those in more detail, where we really offer support for emerging artists in the first 5 years of their career. Then we move on to a sort of a more developed phase, where we offer mentorship awards, and these are collaborative programs that focus on specific themes. And in these programs, we bring together groups of artists working on these certain themes to really deep dive into the content of their work together. Then the last phase of awards that we offer is the Impact Awards, where we really are looking at sort of people who are becoming change makers in their society. So these are people who've already had a career and have really shown sort of the positive engagement that arts can have in society. And we see this as a boost of really giving them the opportunity to really invest in their communities. Yeah, so one of the most important things I would say also in how we work is that we offer unrestricted funding. This means that with all the awards that we give, they're not limited to very heavy reporting burdens. They're also not restricted to previously agreed budgets. So the awards we give are really then at the discretion of the artists and creatives that we work with to invest in ways that that is most useful to them. Now, on top of these awards, we also try and focus our attention on creating exchanges and meaningful connections. And we do this by setting up programs amongst our network and also with people from our network and their counterparts in the Netherlands. So this is sort of one thing that we do that comes on top of financial support and goes for all three of the awards. So it's sort of a more networking aspect. So this is a very brief summary of who we are as an organization. And a lot of this information is also on our website. We're happy to answer any questions you might have. But seeing as we're here today really to deep dive into what the Seed Awards are, I'm going to hand over now to my colleague Anna, who will take you through those.
Thank you, Tessa. Thanks for joining me for the information session and for this introduction. We're going to move on now and talking specifically about the Prince Claus Seed Awards, the reason why we're here today. And just to give you some brief information about how we're going to move on with this session, we're going to briefly discuss what the Seed Award is, the profile of the individuals that we're looking for. We're going to touch a bit on the eligibility criteria and the contents of the application. Then we're going to very briefly discuss what makes a great application, which was one of the questions that I got so much from everybody who registered for this webinar. So I thought we'll give some tips and tricks here. Then we'll just very briefly go into the steps on how to apply and then come to our Q&A, which is the moment where I think everybody is waiting for. There is here in the Zoom tab, there should be a function called Q&A. So if you already know which question you want to ask, you already have it in your hand, you can already put it there and we'll make it through. Otherwise, you can wait throughout the presentation if anything pops up that you can ask on the way. So let's talk about the Prince Claus Seed Awards. The Prince Claus Fund awards 100 Seed Awards per year to emerging artists working with pressing and social issues through their work. We publish this open call every year in the beginning of the year, in between January and March. So if there's anyone here who applied last year, you might remember that we launched in March, and this year we thought we're going to get a quick start. So we launched it in January. And as Tessa said, the recipients of the Seed Awards are free to invest this award as they chose, as long as it is in lines with developing their artistic practice. So the profile for the Seed Awards are emerging artists and cultural practitioners within the diversity of disciplines that we work in. They are in average in the first 5 years of their career. They have innovative and interesting artistic practicing, addressing pressing social and political issues, specifically to the context that they are. So these are issues that really matter for the community that they're based, for their city, for their region, or even for their country as a whole. And they have received little to no recognition for their artistic and cultural practice so far. In terms of eligibility, the most important and top one that I think a lot of the people were asking questions as well is that individuals must be living and working in our eligible countries. And the "and" here is really important. So you really need to fit all of these 3 points. You need to be from an eligible country, be living in an eligible country, and currently working in an eligible country to apply. Successful awardees from last year are not eligible to apply this year. But if there's anyone here watching us who applied last year and who got it, you can also just share your best tips and tricks on the chat for everyone else who will be applying this year. And collective groups and organizations are also not eligible to apply for the Prince Claus Seed Awards. This is an individual application aimed at the individual development of one's career. In terms of costs, I think Tessa and I already mentioned, it is a restricted funding. There's only one cost that the Prince Claus Fund cannot be used for, and that is to cover tuition fees for participation in activities that focus on the academic sector. So education related to university programs or scholarships. The contents of the application. Last year, we changed the application a bit from last year. So if you also applied last year, you'll see that there has been some changes. To submit an application, you'll need to complete all of the form, the questions, including your personal details. You need to provide a pitch to us that answers to the question, what drives you as an artist or author or a cultural practitioner? We need a reference letter from someone, either an individual or an organization that knows your work and has worked with you before and can sort of speak about your work and how you would fit with the Seed Award, an up-to-date CV, and supporting materials related to the work that really are up to you to choose what would you like us to see. So these can be links to YouTube films, these can be a portfolio, it can be maybe an article that came out on your work or just images of your work. It really is up to you to decide what you want to share with us. And then here, what makes a great application? So there's of course a lot of different points that will make a great application, but we selected here 3 that we could actually really see that from last year, all of the winning applications really had. The first of all being to really elaborate on how the social and political issue that your work is addressing, how it really relates to the context that you're in. So of course, a lot of people were working on global issues like the climate emergency, but how does that translate into the community that you are, in your city, in your country? Why is that specifically important for the region that you are? It would be really nice for us to get that idea. The second point is video and audio pitches. They definitely add a more personal touch to the application. If you are not able to provide a video and audio pitch, you can always send us an email and we'll think about an alternative together. But we definitely felt that brings just a new level of personality to the application. And don't forget that although, of course, we want to hear about your work in the pitch, what we really also want to hear is what drives you as an artist to do the work that you're doing. So use this space to really tell us something that we're not going to read on your application anywhere else. Last but not least, the supporting materials. I think what's interesting here is that, of course, there are a lot of people who might apply who haven't developed a lot of projects yet. Maybe you have developed 2 projects, 3 projects. But if you do have a very big arsenal of work that you have created in the past, make a selection of the work that you believe really is in line with the main goals of the Seed Awards, the things that you really want us to see. In the past, we actually allowed people to submit as many supporting materials as possible. So now we have like a maximum of 6 attachments. So really make the selection thinking about what the goals of the Seed Awards are, and then what do you really want us to look at through your work. And how to apply. I think maybe a lot of you have already seen, but we have a digital platform called the Prince Claus Awards platform where you can submit your application there. You can fill all of the required fields and attachments. You can save your application halfway through and come back to it whenever you want, as long as within the deadline. Don't leave it to the last minute. I know a lot of people leave it to the very end of it, but because the platform can get really busy at the end of it, it can also take a lot of time for some attachments to upload. So if you leave, let's say you come in within the last 2 hours and you need to upload a very heavy video and everyone is trying to do that at the same time, it can take quite some time for that to upload, and it can create a situation where you're not able to submit it in time. So make sure to don't leave it to the last minute to make your application. And make sure that you confirm that after submitting your application, you have an email from us that says that your application has been submitted. When you log into our awards platform account, there is a status box where you can see the status of the application, and an application that says in progress has not been fully submitted yet. So you're looking for a status that says submitted, which means that the application has been received and it is in our hands for evaluation. Now, I hope I have been clear, and I hope I have been quick so that there is enough time for us to join the Q&A. I added here that the deadline for for people don't forget, is on the 1st of March 2022 at 23:59 Amsterdam time. So also make sure to check the time difference, because the platform goes automatically closed and then we can't really accept any applications after that. I see that there's already quite some questions on the Q&A session, just so that everybody knows, in case we're not able to answer to all of the questions, but I hope that we are, you can always send us an email, but do stick around, as Tessa said, until the end to make sure that we have answered to all of the questions or any questions that you might have. And we will be focusing on more general questions, so questions that can apply to like a variety of people or to everyone first, and will not be answering to specific case questions here today. So for those questions that are very specific to a case, you can message us, because then we need to make sure that we have enough information before we can answer to that. So Tessa, should we kick off the Q&A?
Let's do it. So first of all, I see we have quite a few questions about the recommendation letters. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of people asking if we need one or more reference letters.
One letter, it's enough. If you really feel like, oh, I really want to share 2 letters, then you can share 1 letter at the reference letter attachment field, and then you can add another one as a supporting material, for example. But 1 letter is enough.
And then there's somebody with a follow-up question asking what we're looking for in a recommendation letter, specifically a singer who's trying to understand who would be an ideal person for them to approach for this.
Yeah, so I think a reference letter is just someone that can talk a little bit about knowing your work, and maybe even considering that we're looking for someone who has this sort of like social aspect to the work, about the importance of your work, and giving this opportunity to you to be a seed awardee. It is important that in the reference letter we can see who is it. We're not looking for superstar names. You know, it doesn't need to be like someone famous. You know, it can be maybe someone who you worked with before. For individuals who are coming maybe out of university, it can be like a teacher or a mentor that you got to know with. Or even maybe a colleague who admires your work, who I guess as a singer, maybe you made some work with it before, and then some explanation about how this person knows your work and how do they see this opportunity fitting with the work that you're doing.
Yeah, perfect. Then we have a question here from Hanan, which is it a grant for projects and funding for residencies, or what exactly? And is it possible to participate in more than one project?
Hi, Hanan. So yeah, that's the beauty of it. If the grant, the award really is for you to dream big and experiment. This award is really meant to be an investment in your artistic practice, and then taking really the next step in your career. So we are allowing people here to just think, what it really is the next step. What would I like to do right now? I would like to experiment with something. It can be a project. It can also be you want to attend a residency in your field in a different country. That can also be it. Maybe you want to host a workshop for people in your community. Really, as long as as long as it's not covering tuition fees for university, you can dream as big as you want. And then just share with us, why do you feel like that is the investment that you want to do?
Yeah, perfect. So a few more questions on how we can use the award. Andrea here is asking if she can use the award to pay people she needs to hire for her work.
Yes. If it's, for example, like a collective project which involves hiring people to be a part of it, that's also not a problem at all.
Perfect. And let's see. Yeah, so should the question about the investment of the fund include a budget? So this is the question that stipulates sort of what you intend to use the award money for.
Yeah. So it is not required to have like a breakdown budget. We just ask you to explain how you would invest it, and really why is that why do you feel like this is the right next step for you? but there should definitely be at least one specific main thing into which where the award will go towards, because this is how we are going to be signing contracts with the seed awardee. So we do need to have at least an idea on where this money will be spent, but it doesn't need to be a breakdown budget in terms of amounts. That is definitely not necessary. So just to give an example for that, for example, if you say, I want to use the money to go to a residency in Amsterdam, then that's all you need to say. Maybe you already know the place of the residency, so you can also put the name in there, but you don't have to break down, for example, oh, flight costs, oh, costs related to the food and lodging, or costs related to this, or so that's not necessary.
Yeah, perfect. Maybe to add, sort of the most important thing there is really the motivation of what it is you want to spend. So it's really more around getting an understanding for us of what it is that you're going to be doing with the money, and less, as Anna said, sort of really a budget. Another question that sort of follows up on this is, how does the funding get divided between stipend and project development?
It's really up to you to decide how that's going to be. I mean, if that's also something you wanna, for example, a lot of people in the past have also used the money to two different things, for example. So maybe you want to say, so I want to use part of the money for this, and I want to use part of the money for that. It's really up to you. Whatever you are feeling like, this is what I need to do right now, this is what I feel like will help me take the next step in my career. That's fine.
Perfect. And then also linking into that is another question that says, are all formats eligible for a project? So for example, can a work be a mix of two formats? For example, a performance along with accompanying video.
Yes, we love multidisciplinary projects. We love to see it.
Yeah. Brilliant. So moving on to somebody asking about working as an individual. An anonymous user here is asking that they have been working with and as collectives mostly up until now. So a lot of the past work is collective oriented. Can I still apply as an individual artist for this award, and would I be eligible?
Yes, you can apply as an individual artist. You can also, of course, share the work that you have done both as an individual or as a collective. But then I think it's important, maybe if you add a lot of the work that is collective, just try to talk a little bit about what it was your role within this project. So for example, maybe you work with a collective in a play or in a performance, and maybe you work with the production, or you work as a choreographer. So it's just interesting to maybe understand, if you share a lot of collective work, what was your role within the collective?
Yeah. And then another one about sort of the individual creative but working in groups. This is somebody who works as an individual creative but works within groups of women to develop her work. Are they still eligible?
Yes, if you're applying as an individual and you want to create collective work, community work, that's also super eligible.
Then another question, this is one I think we haven't seen before, is can I use this grant and funding to also support my other emerging artists or underrated artists?
Yes, you can. Again, I think that is also what Tessa said. It's really important that your motivation in terms of how would me supporting other artists would help me take the next step in my career. There really, as we said it already, there really isn't any restrictions to how you want to use the money, but we really want to see a good motivation in terms of, if you say, I really want to help my community of artists, how is that going to help you as well to develop your own artistic practice? But that's definitely eligible as well.
Brilliant. Then there's quite a few people asking about the eligibility criteria in terms of what the emerging artist criteria is. I'm going to go with one that seems the most expansive first, and then we can run through a few others.
Yeah.
So here's an anonymous user who is asking, can you elaborate a bit more about this emerging artist criteria? For example, if somebody has been practicing one art form for 10 years and is currently expanding to another art form, would that person still be eligible? Or would the fact that the individual has been involved in one kind of artistic practice already make them ineligible?
Yeah, okay. So this is a bit, I guess, also as well as a personal case. So we would need maybe a little bit more information on like what art form, like how exactly are these things very separate from each other. But maybe let's talk a little bit about what we mean with emerging artists. So first of all, and very important, we are not talking about emerging artists. That there's nothing to do with age. So I also get a lot of questions from the form. Is there an age limit to apply? You need to be 18 to be able to sign a contract with us, but it doesn't matter how old you are in terms of how emerging you are. And then we talk about an average first 1 to 5 years of their career, which means that you're starting out developing different practices, trying to understand what your work is about, the content of it. The reason why we have this is also because the Prince Claus Fund has, as Tessa presented, 3 other awards for artists at different stages of their career. So maybe you're wondering, okay, I've already worked for 10 years. Am I eligible to this? Maybe there's other opportunities within the Prince Claus Fund that could suit your practice if you have already been for 10 years active as an artist. The emerging artist criteria is also not an individual criteria in the sense that when we talk about the profile of the Seed Award, is not only, oh, you need to be an emerging artist in the average first 5 years of your artistic practice, but also you need to also be addressing social and political issues. You need to have received little to no recognition in your practice. So it really is a mix of these 3 criteria together. If you ask me, I have 6 years of experience, is that going to take me out? No, we're talking about an average emerging period of work, but it really is about these 3 criteria together and looking at them together as well. Mm-hmm. I hope that that helps. But if you have a very specific case into which you've been practicing for 10 years and now you're changing it to a different field, I would like to maybe know more before I can answer, so you can send us an email specific to that.
Brilliant, thanks, Anna. So actually the end of that question brought us to a new one, which is, how do we determine what is little or no recognition for one's practice?
That is a great question. So when we're talking about recognition, we're specifically talking about having active engagement within the arts and cultural scene locally and internationally. So for example, having had access to platforms or podiums or spaces to showcase and present your work. That will mean different things for different disciplines, as you can imagine. So a visual artist, maybe the best podium to present their work are exhibitions or artistic residencies, but for a musician is participation in festivals, for example. So we really look at sort of what opportunities have been given to these individuals. Recognition is not only awards, but also opportunities to take these spaces to showcase their work. And we're also specifically talking about international opportunities here. So that's how we determine. And then ultimately, what's maybe important to say is that we definitely do receive way more eligible and great applications than what we are actually able to award. So it is also a little bit looking at what opportunities were given to different candidates and so on. And yeah. I also hope that was clear.
I think so. I'm seeing a few more questions from Maja and Dendi come in about what it means, this 5 years in average, and how strict we are, as well as the age limitation. So maybe you could just say it one more time and then we'll move on to a different
Yeah, maybe I can try to explain it different. So when we're talking about these 5 years of sort of like an artistic career or a professional career, we're not necessarily talking about professional in opposition to amateur, but we're talking about profession as in taking arts as a profession, either full-time or part-time. So we don't count a student year. So if you were a student within an arts organization, we don't count those years, but we start counting a period into which sort of you start creating art as a profession, either as a part-time artist or a full-time artist, but that you start presenting yourself as an artist and presenting your work at festivals or galleries or the different podiums that might suit, or maybe you publish some work. This is more or less how we start counting. And then there's an average of how long have you been doing that. And that's the average between 1 to 5 or 2 to 6. And that's more or less what we're looking for.
Perfect. So we have some questions about the pitches. Let me just find one that's good to start with. Yeah, so for the application, will the pitch video that was asked for be kept confidential for the purposes of the application, or is it something that will be published?
It will, nothing will be published without the individual's okays on it. So the pitch is gonna be shared within the evaluation committee. So we have external advisors from different places around the world who will be watching these pitches and reading the applications with us, but they're not going to be made public to the world, and definitely not without discussing with the individuals first.
Perfect.
And this, everything that's shared with us stays stored within our awards platform, and we also have in the front page of the awards platform our data and security policy as well, in terms of how we store things, for how long we store things. So you can also take a look at that.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Then another question from an anonymous user is: last year the pitch could be answered in a written form. Is that not an option anymore?
If you're not able to support a video or an audio, you can send us a message, and then you could still do it as a written. But we definitely noticed in the past that the videos and the audios brought a new side to the application that we really appreciated, and that was really sort of successful with our advisors and with our own evaluators. So that's why we changed it, and we changed a lot of things actually from the application from last year to this year. Some of you will notice. So for that reason, that's why we changed it. But if it's still not possible, we understand that there's also technologies that might make this difference in terms of resources. You could still submit it in written. You just have to send us an email.
Then another question from Duda on the video is: do we prefer it to be in English, or can it be subtitled?
It can be subtitled. It can be in English and it can be subtitled. So we'll leave it up to you to decide how you prefer.
Yes. So here one question also again on the video. Do we have any tips on how to be creative with the audio or video presentation? Any important information we should highlight? Possible to share a story on some creative past presentations that we received?
Yeah, that's a great question. That also touches upon the other question about us sharing these pitches publicly. So that's also why we don't share a lot of these pitches, are very personal stories. So these are things that we wouldn't share, at least not without the consent. But I think really make it personal. Definitely answer to the question, what drives you as an artist? A lot of the times, working on social and political issues that are related to our context, there is something to do with what we see in everyday life and what we experience in everyday life. So just share with us a little bit about your work and what makes your work special, outside of what we will read in your CV or what we will read in your when you talk about your work, right? Because there's a question. So maybe think about everything that you'll be sharing with us through your supporting materials and through your answers, and then make the pitch something new. Bring us something new in it, and that's, I think, the best tip that I can give.
Yeah, and make it personal. That always helps. Yeah. Okay, so another one about sort of the tips that we have. An anonymous user is asking, what have been your comments on the rejected applications last year? And what were the strong application facets that the Seed Award winners had?
Yes, that's great. So that's also a little bit in terms of what we discussed, what make a great application. Some of the issues that we had last year is that people were really quick in terms of talking about how their work had this social aspect to it. And although we really want to know that your work is addressing a social issue or is talking to a certain community and is being important and it has an impact, we really want to know a little bit more about the context that you are. So I would say try to make it a little bit more about why is your work important, where you're currently based, and not sort of generally, oh, I'm working with this issue. So just to give some examples, for example, people are working, right, with climate emergency, or they're working with gender-based issues. But tell us a little bit about why that is important in where you're currently based. That's, I think, is one of the biggest issues that we had last year with applications. And that was one of why the successful applications were successful, because they really touched upon the environments that these individuals are based and why their work is so important there. And then also some small things, of course, make sure that your reference letter has all of the points that we outline on our website. Make sure that your pitch answers to the question, what drives you as an artist? Because also a lot of people, they just go, they talk about their work and all the projects that they've done, but then they end up not answering to the question. At the end, make a good selection of supporting materials that really show that social dimension of your work.
Yeah, brilliant. Then one links also into what makes a good application, is saying the themes of the application seem really precise. How loose of a connection to those specific social and political themes is possible to be accepted?
It can be as loose and as far away from those things as possible. So the themes that are there currently are things that we have identified, and then we just want to know if they fit some of these themes or not. But if you applied last year, you'll see that we actually added an extra question this year to allow people to really just dive into the theme and answer, not by checking a box, but to really answer fully as a paragraph or two on what really is the issue that they're trying to address. So don't feel maybe intimidated or overwhelmed by the fact that there are already themes there. These are just things that we want to know, that we've seen that were sort of very trendy with older applications. But it doesn't mean that if you don't tick any of those boxes that you're immediately out. Definitely not. If something, we're talking about innovation, we're talking about experimentation, we're talking about out of the box. So if you're doing something far away from that, it's also really interesting for us to see something new, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, maybe to add to that, what we really look for is things that are socially engaged in the way that you need them to be. So these themes we have there as guidelines. And what we don't support is art that really has sort of no social or societal relevance, but it doesn't mean that it needs to fit these specific ones. Yeah. So we also had a question, a specific one here that links into this point, which is from Minha. She is saying, I'm a transgender artist and painter. I paint gender ambiguous subjects that explore sex, gender, and personal identity. I'm represented by a local gallery who also sell my work. Am I ineligible since my art is commercial?
No, you're not ineligible because your art is commercial, because artists, people need to live. So there's no problem with being, represented by a gallery in terms of applying. No worries about that.
Yeah.
You're still eligible to apply. Let me just say those words so that it's clear.
Then a question from Isa. Are there certain art forms the Prince Claus Fund prioritizes over others, or does each art form have an equal chance?
Each art form has an equal chance, for sure, within us. There's no priorities nor unpriorities in that sense. So we look at them all equally.
Yeah. Do we have any tips on portfolios?
Yeah, so I think tips on portfolios is a bit the same as the tips for the supporting materials, right? If you just have like 3 projects that you've been working on and you're just starting out as an artist, do include all of your projects. But if you already have like a very big overview of projects that you work on, make a nice selection that you really feel like fits with the goals of the Prince Claus Seed Awards. So that we don't get overwhelmed about the amount of projects that there are, and we can really focus on those that you're the proudest the most, or that you are that you really believe fit with the goals of this opportunity. So I would say if you already have a lot of projects, don't make it too long. That's my tip.
How much is the award?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a €5,000 award. So 5,000 euros, and then that will be different amounts in different countries, but 5,000.
Yeah. And then we have another couple of questions going back to sort of what the grant can be used for. So I think we should maybe answer a few of those again. So Raldi Young is asking, can this grant be used for an ongoing project?
Yes, it can be used for an ongoing project.
Yes. Then Samir is asking if this award can be used for design thinking in schools of remote rural areas.
If it's a project of you as an individual, then you can apply for it, but it cannot be the school applying for the award on behalf of the school, because then that would characterize as an organization. But then again, Samir, is just a matter of you saying, I would like to develop this project because this will help me take the next step in my career. So if you're applying as an individual and it's an individual project, then it is eligible.
Yes, perfect. And then I had a question just now, which I now can't see, but which was about what we mean when we say that a project can't be purely developmental.
It means that there should be an artistic and cultural component to it. So we are a fund for arts and culture, and this opportunity is for artists and cultural practitioners. And sometimes, for example, we would get applications from managers or CEOs. So we're really trying to, the goal of the Prince Claus Fund, as Tessa really explained in the beginning of this presentation, is to provide cultural freedom and cultural expression. So we're looking for projects who may have, of course, developmental approaches and social impact, but they do need to do it through arts and culture.
Yes, perfect. Then we have a couple of questions.
For this person, if there's also maybe a specific case, you can also send us an email with exactly what the case is, and we can look into it.
Yeah, brilliant, thanks. Then we have a couple of questions also about reporting after the prize. So Duda is asking here, should we share our processes with you after winning the prize?
Yeah, so in terms of reporting, we try to make this as simple as possible. So everyone who receives the Prince Claus Seed Awards is asked to do report on the basis of a survey at the 1 year after they have been received. We might contact you at some point throughout the year just to check in and to see how things are going. But there isn't any heavy reporting in the sense that you don't have to save invoices and send budgets and expenditure overviews. We are really looking with the reporting just to see what was the impact of having received this award for you. So you will be requested to answer to a survey, and you might be contacted to see if you want to be involved with the Prince Claus Fund further as well. But that's as far as reporting goes. Yeah.
Then there's a follow-up question to this, which is, do we have to deliver something? I think you've already answered it, but maybe just explicitly as well.
Yeah, just no, you don't have to deliver something. You will be asked to respond to a survey 1 year after you have received the award. And the survey will specifically have questions focusing on the impact that the award has had to you, what has happened to you and to your practice after having received the awards. Were there many or more opportunities or less opportunities? How do you foresee the future, and so on? So these are mostly questions that you can answer, and you will not have to submit anything, if that's maybe very clear.
Yeah, brilliant. Then we have a couple of more questions about what are eligible activities to spend the grant on. Starting here with Julia, can the award be used for completely new projects, even if I don't have supporting materials to show for that project?
Yes, definitely. That's possible.
Yeah, maybe to add, if you don't have materials specifically relating to a project you would want to spend the grant on, just make sure that there's enough there that we can see sort of what it is, the type of work that you do. If it's something that's so unrelated that you think it needs explanation, make sure just to explain it properly in the box that there is for what you would spend the grant on. Then Shans has a question about the different concerns. They say they are working on many different concerns. Should I focus on all of them in my application or just a few specific ones?
Now that's a great question. I never got that question before. Maybe you can mention the different things, the different themes that you work with in your work. But then if you're going to work maybe towards one very specific theme using this award, then you can elaborate further on that one. But that's also why maybe you can even use the supporting materials area where you can attach. So if you want to attach, for example, examples of your work, maybe there you can also say, like, for example, this work I'm working with this idea, and this other work I'm working with this other thing. So also use maybe the supporting materials tab to show the different works that you've done within the different themes.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Then a question that sort of links into that from Valentina is, in our portfolio, can we add ongoing work, or does it have to be already finished projects?
Definitely, you can add ongoing work.
Yes, very much so.
Yep.
Okay, and here from Daneshwar, I work as a multidisciplinary artist. Can I include a sample of artwork such as 4 paintings and 2 sculptures as part of my application, or what would be better? Thank you.
You can add both examples. Yes, no problems.
Yeah, I think for us, we really want to get sort of a broad as possible view of the work that you do. Mm-hmm. So if you do work across disciplines, then share examples of all of these.
Yeah.
Then Maya has a question about what we mean precisely with cultural practitioners.
That's a great question. I think everyone or anyone working within the cultural sector, working with the development of cultural initiatives that have the social benefit, could be considered a cultural practitioner, right? A lot of people have like a very independent practice, and people might have like a collective practice, but if you're working within the cultural sector to the development of cultural initiatives, cultural maybe capacity building initiatives with this social aspect, then we would consider you a cultural practitioner. Mm-hmm. So just to give some examples, maybe you're not an artist, but maybe you are a curator, or maybe you're a cultural producer, and maybe you like to organize festivals or things and so on. So I think anything who wouldn't fall into an artist category, but you're still working with cultural initiatives for social impact, would fall into a cultural practitioner. But if you have maybe a specific term that defines you and you want to share with us via email, then we can also chat more specifically about your case as well.
Yeah. Then another question from an anonymous user is it okay if we're trying to fund a project that's being funded also by other organizations?
That's okay. That's eligible.
And can it be used for creating local residencies?
Yes. Again, as long as well motivated, it can.
Yeah. Then going back to more of the practicalities of the application, we have one person asking, in terms of logistics, do we have to write it all down in the application, or will you ask for the specific logistics thereafter for those who have already submitted? So just, I think that what's being asked here is if we need sort of all of the exact details of how the grant is going to be spent. And please, if this is not what you're actually asking, just send us an email or add another question to the link here. And then maybe you could answer it as that.
Yeah, so no, there will be sort of like room for how do you say, revise that. So when we sign the contract, we'll make sure that like, is this still the plan, you know, and or maybe is there things to be added or things that needs change? We'll discuss that. There will be room for that. And then also for everyone who has already submitted their application, you can actually still change things before the deadline. So when we say that you can save your application and come back to it up into the deadline, this also counts for people who have already submitted. But do make sure to submit it again, because if you already submitted and you go there to change things, you need to submit it once again, otherwise it will stay as in progress. So if there's anything that changed already that you want to change, you can go back there and change it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect. Then there's a couple of other questions again about how much recognition is too much recognition, Some people asking that they've already received an award or two, or have participated in a summer school, or have participated in international residencies. At what point is recognition too much to be eligible?
Yeah, that is a good question. And unfortunately, I think that that's a question that's a bit difficult to answer without looking at the recognition. And honestly, it also has something to do with looking at the opportunities that were given to the amount of individuals who apply. So as we said, there are definitely way more eligible applicants than 100 applicants. So it really is also for us a work into looking at the people who apply and seeing what opportunities were already given to some and to some not. But we are talking about little to no recognition internationally. So I would say if you have already had the opportunity to exhibit your work in 5 different countries outside of where you're based, that probably means that you are a bit too already sort of on their way and maybe would be less, not as eligible maybe for this opportunity. And maybe you can already look at other opportunities that are there at the Prince Claus Fund website for people who have a artistic career already further along in terms of establishment.
Yeah, maybe I can add from just also reading sort of everybody's different questions. If you've done 1 residency, 2 residency, this doesn't make you ineligible. If you've had 1 international award, doesn't necessarily mean that you're ineligible either. If you've published work earlier than 5 years ago, but only really sort of started professionally working or more in-depth working in the last couple of years, then you'd still be eligible. So these aren't hard criteria. When sort of if you've had 1 thing, then you're out of the running. That's not the case. It's really trying to understand for us to understand for who this award in specific would really have a big impact. Yeah, so then we also have a question again on the aspect of collectives. Can the award be used to fund works that I do within a collective?
Again, yes, it can be, as long as it is very clearly motivated. Why would funding collective work would help you taking this next step in developing your practice? But you need to apply as an individual.
Yeah. And then in terms of experience, again, there are a few people asking if their experience as students counts as experience or not. No. Years as students do not count as years within your career. And then also, if you spend a time between your student years and the moment that you start, these years also don't count. So we're really talking about the moment that you start being an artist or a cultural practitioner as a profession. Yeah. Then some more questions about the video pitch. Does it need to be of any certain video quality? No. It also doesn't necessarily need to show you. That's also important to say. If you also just want to show, maybe hear your voice with images, that's also fine. You don't need to stand up on the camera if you don't feel comfortable with it. Yeah, that also answers, I think, Duda's question asking, can the video have some editing, or do you prefer just the person to be talking? No, editing, talking, everything is game. Yeah, any way that you feel you want to present yourself is totally fine for us. Yeah. Then we have a question about role models. Shans is asking, what kind of information would you like about our role models? Do we have to tie our practice with theirs? No, so that's just no, you don't have to. This is just a question that we're interested to know, who are the role models of the people applying to us. So just the name, and then maybe if you want to give information of you see that the question has a very small
field. So not like, for example, the questions that we ask, how you're going to invest the money, is a bigger field. So that means that there's more space. And that one is a small field. So maybe you can just write the name and maybe even the discipline that this person is working in. So if it's a writer, if it's a performer, if it's a visual artist, but you don't need to provide, it's also an optional question as well. So we're just there, we just want to see who are the role models of the people applying for the Seed Awards.
Exactly. It's a way for us really also to understand the wider field in a different way from your perspectives.
Yeah.
Then we have one follow-up question on the videos. Can the video pitch be experimental, almost like an art performance, because it would connect better with my performance work?
Yes, that sounds super fun. Can't wait to look at it.
Then we have one question about taxes. So this is a question from a person in India. Transactions to India include a tax. Is the 5,000 euros inclusive or exclusive of this tax?
So when it leaves from here, the money is completely tax-free. So it is transferred, but it is maybe important to check with your bank if they would deduct the taxes from their side. But from us, it is completely, it goes in full, so tax-free.
Yeah, so it means that we transfer the 5,000. If there's anything taken off at the other end, that's not something that we then reimburse.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I see that we are almost running out of time. So maybe let's look for some questions that haven't been answered yet. And then for everyone who didn't get their questions answered, I will be on the awards email answering to all of the leftover questions in the coming 3 days to make sure that there's enough time for everybody to apply. But I think we can still do a few.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the questions really link back. So I see Kad is also saying some things about the India tax. If you have specific questions that you want, because I know in India, there are specific regulations about transferring money and about receiving money.
Yeah.
If you have any concerns about this beforehand, you can just email us. The same goes for any other like specific concerns.
We have transferred.
We
have transferred. We had seed awardees last year from India with whom we transferred money for, and we haven't heard anything about a big tax deduction. So I can also contact them and see, but yeah, for specific cases, please email us and we can discuss them further.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the other questions are again about sort of how much recognition and how much workshops. I mean, as Anna said, I think now multiple times, for the recognition, it's really sort of some recognition is not bad. It's really a flexible criteria that we have. But if you've participated in multiple international programs, then probably you're already past the stage of this Seed Award. And then the same goes for if you've been doing many workshop projects, but without funding. As long as it's within sort of the bracket of the, 4 to 8 years of experience, this is fine. So it's not something that would make you ineligible. Then we have one more specific question from Shans, which is, if I got an international scholarship for my master's to the UK, am I eligible?
If you're currently based in the UK, you're not eligible. Because the UK is not on our list of eligible countries. So if you're currently based in the UK, you're not eligible to apply. But if you're ever, as we said, this is a yearly opportunity, so it is available every year. So if at some point you do leave and you return if you're based in a country that is eligible, you're welcome to apply. But while you're based in the UK, it's not eligible.
Yeah. Okay, we have 2 more questions. Are amateur artists eligible?
Yes. So when we're talking about professional career, as we said, it's not professional in opposite to amateur, but it's professional in terms of a profession. So artist as a profession.
Yeah. And in the commitment you're doing. Yeah. So here I'm both an artist and a cultural practitioner. Is there one of these aspects that I should put more importance on? Because often these 2 roles seem to intermingle.
That's very much true. And you don't have to put more weight on one or the other. You can apply as an artist and a cultural practitioner.
And this also links into sort of how we see the disciplines, right? So we don't have sort of like, oh, these are the awards we give for photography, these are the awards we give for visual artists. We really sort of see the multidisciplinarity and sort of fluidness of the cultural sector in the way that we work.
Yeah, perfect. And then I do want to add one specific thing that that a lot of people ask when they registered, which was about how the decision is made. So on our website, if you go to the how to apply and eligibility criteria, there's a section there called assessment and decision that specifically talks about who is making this decision and what are the points that we look on per application. So the points are originality, work that is transformative, context specific, inclusion, and impactful. These 5 points are there sort of like listed with all of the lines in terms of what do they mean. So you can take a look at these points as well to help you guide when you're writing your application. So that can also help. And I see that there are still some questions in the chat. I really do hope that next time maybe we'll schedule a little bit like a 15-minute longer time, but I do hope that we were able to answer the majority of your questions. And if not, please do send us an email and we'll be with you right away.
I think we'll then leave it at that, seeing as we've come to the end of our time. I think our email has been shared multiple times. You can also find it on, here on the slide here, awards@princeclausfund.nl. Do feel free to always email us. We're happy to field any remaining questions that people have. If you joined later, maybe also go back through the questions that were asked, because we do see a lot of people sort of have similar or the same questions even. But if your question hasn't been answered, then do reach out to us. Also for more specific cases, we're always happy to help.
Yeah, and as Tessa said, this will be recorded and will be available on our Facebook, so you can always also watch back.
So that's that.